Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it's my number 16 team in my 2024 NFL Deep Dive series. It's the Los Angeles Chargers, not the San Diego Chargers, like I said in so many other aspects of this intro that I had to redo. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any of the future videos. And the Chargers have one of the more interesting stories this past offseason. They got Jim Harbaugh, the number one head coaching vacancy candidate in the entire football world. Finally lured him out of college after he won the national championship. He's coming in hoping to sprinkle some of that magic all over the Chargers. That's what she said. It is California after all. And pause. It's very exciting to see him work with Justin Herbert throughout this next couple of years, you hope. And to truly unlock what Justin Herbert has inside of him. Now, this is a team that when he came in, he really put his fingerprints all over it immediately. It's a team that is definitely built to play a very specific style of football that we'll get to. And that style is to extend games, to run the ball effectively, to systematically and methodically throw the ball when you need to, play smart, disciplined offense, and then be able to play aggressive defense on the back end with a lead. Now, they do have some of the same issues on defense that they've seemed to always had, which is right up the middle. Now, they make up for a lot of that with the talent they have on the back end with Derwin James, Alohi Gilman, and off the edges with Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, and on early downs, Tuli Tuipulotu. So you're hoping that, at least they're hoping that through the team that they've built, stylistically, that they're going to be able to have an effective run game despite the lack of talent they have at the interior defensive line and the overall inexperience and injury concerns sort of mixing in together at the linebacker group in those running situations as well. So that's the big hope here. The big hope here, and on a talent level, they certainly have it in so many of these other aspects that it should raise this defense up in both aspects of the defense into like that top 10 level. It really should. If the interior defensive line just can't get it together the way they have the last couple of years, and if you see some, deficiencies in some of these other positional groups in those situations as well, it could all go completely wrong for this team, because they're built to play a very specific style this season in particular, and they're a team that's sort of building up everything, getting experience for certain guys. Certain position groups are looking for experience, but also members of the coaching staff as well, and they got a little mix here of veterans and brand new people. So let's get to that coaching staff to start right now. So this really is the most exciting new coaching staff in the entire NFL, with a brand new head coach. Technically, they're tied for 13th. Jim Harbaugh coming back to the NFL. This is just a great move. It took a while to get him out of Michigan. I think winning the national title is what allowed him to feel like he could leave. That was, I think, really was the deciding factor, sort of that unfinished business type of a thing. And it's going to pay off huge for the Chargers. He's my 10th ranked head coach. And the only reason he's not ranked higher than that is because, is the whole jumping back and forth between college and the pros going to, hurt his ability to readapt to the pro game. Now, I think he's going to be much more in touch with the modern young player in particular from being in college. I think his rah-rah type attitude is also going to be a lot more effective than it was. Not saying it wasn't effective before in San Francisco, but it's definitely going to be effective now, because it's something that more players have really been asking for, it seems, out of their coaches. Now, there is a thing about going from college to the pros in terms of how players expect to be treated, especially veteran players from other teams. And you got some veteran players on this team like Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack in particular, who, depending on how Harbaugh adapts and handles things in the locker room, it could backfire at times, more like a militant style, which has never really been Harbaugh's way from the looks of it anyway. but there could be some of those moments that bleed over throughout the season. I think it could. I don't know if it's going to be an ultra negative by any means. He's got Greg Roman as his offensive coordinator. He's my 14th ranked offensive coordinator. He really made his name in Baltimore. Which they always had he was Lamar Jackson's MVP offensive coordinator from 2019. Completely different types of players that he has now. It's actually very interesting to see him get the job with the roster that they built. Because they brought in Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, who from Baltimore, so there's some sort of system familiarity there. But there's not really like that high-end runner, not at quarterback, not at running back. So how they're going, but they've also not really stacked the team at wide receiver. So their offense, in terms of their weapons, as we'll get to, you'll see it's not as good as really Greg Roman would have been used to in terms of high upside, in terms of running talent. Justin Herbert, the quarterback, is a much better passer than Lamar Jackson will ever be. So there is that, how that gets adjusted, how him and Harbaugh in particular work together on this offense is going to be something to really watch. Harbaugh's always been really great with quarterbacks. You saw with Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, in college with J.J. McCarthy, in college with Andrew Luck. There's a lot of history here of Harbaugh having a lot of success with quarterbacks, even ones that are a little bit raw in talent, and he's inheriting probably the best quarterback he's ever inherited in Justin Herbert. So how he uses some of Greg Roman's concepts, and then how Greg Roman melds in what Jim Harbaugh wants the offense to look like, and with the talent they have around them. I don't know if we're looking ahead at any type of hiccups or anything like that. I'm sure there will be. They do have Mark Trestman as the senior offensive assistant, so they got some experience in there as well. But when you're a senior offensive assistant, you're basically, I would say, maybe at best the third person in charge. It's good to have the kind of brain power in there of a former head coach and offensive coordinator, someone who had success running offenses at least. And then you get to the defense, and it's Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator. He's going to get the 22nd ranked defensive coordinator spot for me. He is being brought over from the University of Michigan. So there is some continuity and some synchronicity there between him and Harbaugh. And it's obvious that he brought him for a reason. There was a lot of defensive coordinator prospects out there. Jesse Minter took over, I believe, from Mike McDonald, who's now the head coach of Seattle. He had that great year with Baltimore. A lot of Baltimore ties here. The Baltimore-Michigan ties seem to be deep here with the John Harbaugh connection in there as well. But Michigan did play really good defense. They produced some really good defensive players the last couple of years. Some of them are on this team now. A lot of them are in the NFL in one way, shape, or form. So how, he adapts. Again, this is adapting to the pro game compared to college. It's very different. It's more similar than it's ever been, but it's still different enough where you can't just transfer every college concept into the pros. You got some fun, I'll say, position coaches here, particularly former San Francisco 49ers linebacker under Jim Harbaugh. Navarro Bowman is your linebackers coach. I always love to see those guys of just the previous generation getting into the coaching ranks. So I do expect a young linebacker group to get some really good coaching here from somebody who was a amazingly talented player and unfortunately lived in the shadow of one of the best of a generation in Patrick Willis, but was still very, very good. Probably would have gotten a lot more praise had he been on a team by himself and not with Patrick Willis during the time that he was. And I believe he picked up an injury late in his career that kind of derailed things sooner than he would have liked. But overall, 13th, tied for 13th coaching staff. I think there's certainly top 10 potential here. Top 5 even by the end of the year. And I think this really is the key that keeps their head sort of above water here. I know people got them ranked outside the top 20, even bottom 25. And I just think that that's short-sighted when you have a head coach like Harbaugh, who I just don't think this team is going to be in a position. Like the floor for this team is now like 7-8 wins at this point for me. Their ceiling, I guess, is going to depend on how well the coaching staff and the actual talent level interact with one another. We talked about him just a little bit earlier. It's Justin Herbert, the quarterback. It's tied for 7th here. He gets a 90 grade. Not a lot in terms of the backups. Easton Stick's sort of like a meme online more than anything else. But Justin Herbert he's the best, like I said, he's the best quarterback that Jim Harbaugh's ever had in terms of his overall talent level. And you saw what he got out of Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick in particular. Those guys got careers because of Jim Harbaugh. Particularly Colin Kaepernick, who without Harbaugh was just not anything at all. He was a bottom 2, bottom 3 quarterback in the league, barely even starter caliber after Harbaugh left. So, Herbert now, he's had a lot of, there was a lot of imbalance, a lot of turbulence that he's had with his offensive coaching throughout his career. And he doesn't have a lot of weapons now, like he's had before when he had Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, which we'll get to. The running game is just, maybe it's better than it would have been last year. They certainly replaced it with more true running back talent, which is going to have some interesting depth as well that we'll get to. But it's really up to him to meld well with Harbaugh and now be the quarterback that elevates those around him, which is not necessarily something he's had to do the last couple of years, or at least really at all during his pro career so far. But it's something where they paid him, so he needs to start playing that way. He's having this Aaron Rodgers level trajectory, and I keep using Aaron Rodgers as an example because you get a quarterback who had really great arm talent, but leaned a lot on his mobility and his running ability early in his career. And then that gradually tapered off and he became more of a traditional pocket quarterback. I think we're going to see that here from Justin Herbert more than we've seen it any other year, where he's going to let his arm talent really shine. I think they're going to be able to stretch the ball down the field. I look at the wide receiver talent they have, and I expect him to sort of maybe play have that Peyton Manning type year, where he's going to have so many guys at so many different levels with so many specific skill sets that it's going to be a lot of pre-snap reads deciding where he's going to go with the ball. And I think Justin Herbert is very well equipped to do that. And I think as him and Harbaugh spend more time together, he's going to become especially more equipped for that. And he's somebody who, maybe not this year, because again, there's still a lot of question marks surrounding the weapons that he has, and there's a couple of offensive line issues that need to be addressed. There needs to be improvement on, but Herbert, I think, is legitimately back in this upward trajectory to be considered a unanimous top 5 quarterback. And I think we'll start to have those MVP caliber games, MVP caliber season on a more consistent basis now that he's got the coaching that he has. How Greg Roman again helps form an offense for him. I'm sure Greg Roman's going to be the play caller. I think Harbaugh, I don't know how long the leash is going to be on Greg Roman when you have someone like Harbaugh who demands things to be a certain way. And I think if Herbert comes out and things aren't really working early on, I could see Harbaugh making some pretty hard adjustments to get out of Herbert what he got out of those previous quarterbacks, because there's a lot here still to unlock with Justin Herbert, and he's still, I think, widely considered to be a top 10 quarterback at worst in the league. I think having him tied for 7th might be as low as you'll see him ranked by a lot of people. But it's a really exciting time, I think, for Chargers fans to have this combination going for them and to have this happen for Justin Herbert, who arm strength is fantastic. His accuracy has improved every single year. His pocket presence has improved every single year. So now this is like the final step for him to get over the top this year. Now, we talked a little bit about this too. The running threats here, the first, second down backs tied for 28th with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins from the Baltimore Ravens, both coming over with Greg Roman basically to reunite with him here. They also got Kimani Vidal, a running back. So there's really going to be a three-headed monster here, I think, in terms of their running attack. You also can't count on J.K. Dobbins to stay healthy. He hasn't been healthy his whole career. Hasn't really lived up to anything. So Gus Edwards will probably be the bell cow back for most of the early seasons. Most early seasons work. He's also going to be the receiving back. He is dead last, though, in terms of receiving backs. It's going to be interesting to see how they work this out. Because you're hoping that somebody can step up and be a great receiving back for you to raise the floor a bit, get another weapon out on the field. But it seems like they've really more or less formed this offense to have your running backs to run the ball between the tackles, wear the opponent down, and then, chip away at them with the passing game, being very smart with the throws, very methodical with the play calling and the passing situations, and keep games short in particular, and play good defense on the back end. And I think that when you have this much depth in your running back room, I think you can really effectively do that. Especially bringing in Gus Edwards, who's used to being in a backfield where a lot is demanded of him. J.K. Dobbins, who was at least in a locker room where he knew a lot was going to be demanded of him. If he can stay healthy, who knows what they can unlock there. And then to get Kimani Vidal in there, and they have Isaiah Spiller, who hasn't really panned out in the previous regime. How this new regime uses him might be interesting if he makes the team. But I don't really foresee this running back room. It's not built around one guy. It truly is built around a system of backs. I do this here in particular, the receiving back aspect does concern me, because you want guys who can pick up blitzes, you want guys who can split out and run routes and have sure hands in certain situations. And if that's not something that you have, then you do lose an important piece of an offense where it's clear the idea is, like I said, to shorten games, to have long, sustained offensive drives. You lose that when you lose the ability to involve the running back in the passing game, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that, but they will be able to run between the tackles. You stack the 8 guys in the box, and then you hope that Justin Herbert, with the use of the play action game, can then pick guys apart on the back end on a lot of these defenses. They also have the last ranked wide receiver room, but a lot of potential. There's a high ceiling on this room, I will say. Quentin Johnston coming in to his second season after just not a great showing last year. He really needs to step it up. We've heard some good things coming out of the camp, so how he comes out basically taking over that Mike Williams spot, we'll see how that works out. Then they got Joshua Palmer, who really is just going to slide into the spot that he usually plays in for this offense. He just now is somehow wide receiver 1, kind of. But I think as the season goes on, by the end of the year, Ladd McConkey's going to end up taking over as that wide receiver 1. He's the second round pick. I think he's got like offensive rookie of the year potential. Obviously, it's more of a quarterback award for the most part, but if he's in a position where he could show out. He could be that rookie that comes out and gets 90 catches coming out of the slot, playing like a Wes Welker type role in this offense, taking a lot of the snaps that would have gone to Keenan Allen as like a bigger slot receiver. I could see Ladd McConkey sort of combining all these different aspects of slot receiver play, like the little white guy type thing, and he can run routes really well. He's probably coming in as the best route running rookie out of everyone. The size and the athleticism is obviously lowers his ceiling a bit, especially in his rookie season. But he's going to get used in a number of different ways. You'll see him running motions. You'll see him running end arounds and reverses. You'll see him running little quick outs. You'll see him running a lot of double moves because he's just so good at all those things. He's got that little quick ability. You look at him and it's odd to always compare like the white receivers to other white receivers, but you see him run. He's like a faster Julian Edelman out there. Like the movements are very similar. The arm movements, the way they come out of breaks, you see a lot of that Julian Edelman stuff in him. He's just faster. So there's a lot of potential there for him. Quinn Johnston's got to clean up his hands, but I like the idea of Brendan Rice, who's another rookie that they drafted, the son of Jerry Rice. I would look for him to perhaps be like a sneaky breakout player in this offense, especially because it is so wide open. DJ Chark is there as a veteran. I also would highlight Cornelius Johnson, who was the wide receiver for Michigan, who got picked up as a UDFA. The soft spot for his old college players could have Jim Harbaugh leaning on Johnson making the team in some way, shape, or form. And this could end up being a very, very young wide receiver room. But there is a legitimate world where Brandon Rice and Ladd McConkey might be your two leading receivers this year. Brandon Rice has the work ethic. He's got the pedigree. And Ladd McConkey's got all the skills here. Not taking anything away from Brandon Rice's skill set. But when your number one wide receiver influence is the greatest of all time, once you sort of get past the pressure of having to live up to the last name, the floor for what your potential is going to be much higher than somebody else's. Just because you're going to have the mental aspect of the game so down pat. You're going to have your dad on the phone with you on Monday going, hey, I was watching some of these routes here. I was watching some of the route combination, blah, blah, blah. And like, if you do this next time, do that. Like, try that. He's going to have all this advice. There isn't, I don't know who the wide receiver coach is on this team. I forgot to look, but it ain't better than Jerry Rice. I'll tell you that. So there is a leg up that this guy's going to have. That's why I think so highly of him. And I think that, Quentin Johnston is the one I think in direct competition with him more than anything. So that is going to be something to watch. And then as you get to the tight ends, they got Will Dissly. And this is just another more evidence about them wanting to run the ball. Will Dissly's a great blocking tight end. He gets a 72 grade, 26 in the league in terms of receiving tight end. I'd look at Donald Parham to also get a lot of snaps here. Hayden Hurst, veteran under the radar player for them. Be interested to see what kind of playing time he gets. But I like Will Dissly as bringing him in was the epitome of what this offense was supposed to be, which is we're going to play a more traditional old school tight end, run the ball, and then throw it in like very select methodical situations, because Dissly can be a great receiving tight end as well, but his game is like more brutish, more punishing, like you would expect from a tight end from yesteryear, more so than like this modern tight end like a Travis Kelce, even like a Mark Andrews. He's like a bigger, more committed to blocking version of George Kittle, I guess. Like George Kittle is the closest thing you get to this. He's still probably not as good of a blocker. He's obviously a much better receiver, but you've put yourself now in a situation where Dissly, you have like a sixth offensive lineman now on the field in terms of the ability to block, come off of double teams, get to the second level, and help with some of those stretch runs that you'll see involving Gus Edwards. And I think that's also going to help round out this offense the way that Jim Harbaugh has been wanting it to be. It's just when you get this wide receiver room, they're clearly a year away at least. they're Quentin Johnson realizing his potential. There's Ladd McConkey realizing his potential. Brandon Rice realizing his potential. DJ Chark playing consistent football for the first time in a long time. Joshua Palmer stepping up into a role where he's the only receiver on this roster that has like a true built-in relationship with the quarterback. So he's going to be doing a lot of helping out these other receivers get into position. That's a lot for him to carry. He's going to have to step up into that role as well. It is just a pure talent level right now. It is just not looking all that great initially. Let's go over to the offensive line now, and they are 18th in pass blocking. It's really carried by the two tackles, Rashawn Slater and then the rookie Joe Alt. Now, Joe Alt is converting from left tackle to right tackle, which is compared to wiping with your left hand. For people out there who get that reference. So it's going to be tough to not expect there to be hiccups from Joe Alt playing right tackle. I still think he's such a high-level player that it drops him down to an 81. I expect the 81 grade compared to the rest of the league to be really the lowest that we'll see from him. On average, of course, he'll have some weaker games and he'll have some stronger games, but I think it'll average out to at least this type of a grade. What they got going on in the interior, Zion Johnson needs to step up and be playing like a first-round pick interior offensive lineman. People, including myself, are very high on him, and he needs to really step up his game and get to that level. This is the time for him to do it. Bradley Bozeman is taking over for Chris Lindsley, who retired. An up-and-down type player, Bozeman, but he has history playing with Greg Roman back in Baltimore, so there's a huge advantage there, and he can help sort of cauterize this offensive line play. And then there's Jamari Salyer, who I really like. I do. He's like a guard/tackle. Right now, it looks like they're kicking Trey Pipkins into guard as well. So there's going to be like this three-man competition here between Salyer, Zion Johnson, and Trey Pipkins, who Pipkins basically lost his starting spot to the drafting of Joe Alt, which is understandable. But Pipkins hasn't been all that terrible in his replacement of in his playing at that right tackle spot for the Chargers over the years. Like, he hasn't been obviously great, especially in the run game. He hasn't been great. I think that's where he really loses out. But I think he's very serviceable. I think he's a high-end backup in terms of pass blocking. I look at Brandon James as an interior guy, and I see the same thing. So they do have some interesting depth pieces here where there could be some competition. And, of course, this Harbaugh team, this Harbaugh coaching staff and administration, they're not married to Zion Johnson and Jamari Salyer. They're not. I mean, Rashawn Jenkins is one of the best left tackles in the league, so you better get on one knee for him. But between those two interior guys, Trey Pipkins, they even got drafted a guy, Tyler Smith, Willis Patrick, Bucky Williams. Like, there's guys in here where they won't hesitate to bench Zion Johnson if he's not playing. So Zion's really got to make sure that he shows up this year. As you move into run blocking, again, he hasn't really shown anything. They're 24th in the league. Rashawn Slater is really where he drops off, but Joe Alt sort of maintains for me. Bradley Bozeman takes a tremendous step up, especially with this offensive scheme they're going to be running. You would think with Greg Roman, the influence of Greg Roman. But again, you look at the interior here, Jamari Salyer, Zion Johnson, not very good. Haven't been performing really well in the run game. As you get into some of the depth, that's where you see Bucky Williams in particular for me become very appealing. And you look at Trey Pipkins, who is not as good as Zion, but he's got a little bit up on Jamari Salyer, so I could see as an overall player, Pipkins getting in over one of these guys by the time the season starts, and seeing how it works out, kicking him into guard. I think that there's a real possibility that could happen, and I think it will elevate this offensive line a little bit. initially, at least on paper. In practice, moving a guy from tackle to guard, though, not always as easy as Madden makes it seem to be. Same thing, guys going left to right, which is with Joe Alt. If Joe Alt was playing a left tackle role, I'd probably give him an extra 3 points on each of his things, but I think I dropped him down a couple of grading points just because of the switch and what that could come with it. But I really like Bucky Williams under the radar here to be at least a quality backup center in his first year. While Brendan James and Trey Pipkin, Zion Johnson, and Jamari Salyer sort of are the competition amongst each other for guard spots. And then, Pipkins obviously is probably your swing tackle as well at this point. Slater goes down, Joe Alt probably goes to left, Pipkins will go to right tackle. But Tyler McClellan, great run blocker coming into the league. And unlike most other teams where I think pass blocking would sort of take precedent, I think this is one of the few teams where that's sort of the opposite. So I do like Bucky Williams and Trey McClellan, in particular the two rookies, to maybe make the team because of this ability, and then they can probably sort out amongst their offensive line coaching to elevate their pass blocking more so than trying to get in a built-in pass blocker and then try to elevate their run blocking to better suit the offense they need immediately rather than the offense that they're hoping to build towards in the next couple of years once they get a wide receiver room that's more developed and well-rounded and stuff like that. So there could be a huge advantage there for those two young players to make the team over some of the other competition, some of the more veteran competition like Jordan McFadden or Foster Sorrell. Positional summary here again. The passing game, in terms of the weapons outside the quarterback, is just it's just not ready. We talked about Will Dissly as a blocker. He gets an A. After him, there's not a whole lot of blocking at the tight end position, so that's going to be something to watch. It's still very much an offense that is building, that they're trying to mold and form into the vision that Harbaugh has for them. That's just really difficult to do in one off-season cycle. It's just not reasonable, especially when the talent pool that he inherited didn't suit that offense, so he had to get rid of a lot of guys. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, all those guys gone. Gerald Everett gone. So it's still very much a building block season. So overall, they're my 25th ranked offense, 27th pass offense, 20th run offense, and you just hope that as the season goes on, they can get the receivers going, that pass offense can elevate itself. Now moving on to the defense, and we'll start with the edge room. It is tied for 6th in the league with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Both guys, I think, took pay cuts. I know Bosa kind of took a restructuring in the offseason to keep this combination together. It's a great combination of veteran players. You wonder when the drop-off for Khalil Mack is going to happen. It sort of hinted like it was going to happen, and then last year he just blew people away. Bosa, still great. And sort of under the radar, they brought in Tuli Tuipulotu last year, who did great work on early downs. Still needs to develop as an edge rusher after playing more like a 3-4. He's sort of like a 3-4 end at USC, also an edge player, but sort of interior, like he sort of kicked around like that. So being a true edge player on this team, we'll see how that works out for him. Bud Dupree is a veteran in there. Don't know if he makes the team. Ty Shelby and Tuli seem to be the two best options for backups here to these great veteran talents. And of course, Khalil Mack, he's got experience playing edge most of his career, but he's also got off-ball skills. So you can see him kick back into coverage sometimes, playing some soft zones. Bosa's more the traditional 4-3 defensive end. So you'll see him just solely going after the passer. And then likely coming off the field on some of these early downs for Tuli Tuipulotu, because they do have, between Mack and Tuipulotu, tied for the best edge room against the run. Very, very good last year. And, Bosa's not bad at it, I would say, either. But this is a great opportunity to rotate him off in particular and get Tuli some snaps, let him do some of the dirty work here. But then you're not necessarily upset about Khalil Mack coming off sometimes because Joey Bosa can step up and still be very serviceable there. You're basically got two number one edge players against the run here. And Tuli's always had to play bigger than his size anyway from back in college. So I think that helps him a lot now that he's more solely just an edge. And then, you really have a very nice group here that has some nice depth. You got good players here where you're going to be able to mix in different skill sets, and it'll be an interesting battle throughout the offseason to see who makes the team for this edge room. As you get to the interior, this is something that sort of haunted this team for a while now, and it's not having a great interior defensive line. It's always been the weak spot of this team for years now. Very surprised they didn't use a high draft pick, particularly on someone like Chris Jenkins, who ended up in Cincinnati. They are tied for 28th in interior rush. They brought in Poona Ford to be like a starter there. So you'd look at Poona Ford, Morgan Fox, Khalil Mack, and Joey Bosa to be your front four in pass situations. I would even look for Tuli Tuipulotu to slide in for Morgan Fox in certain scenarios as well. Michael Mason, the rookie, is really the only depth piece they have that's serviceable at all as an interior rusher. In terms of run stuffing, early down work, they're tied for 24th. This is where Justin Ibiagbe from Alabama, the rookie, really gets a tremendous step up. This is where you're going to see him play. But they got nothing outside of him. So there's a lot of faith in this rookie projection and in how this group is ranked as run stuffers. Because the next best is Morgan Fox, and he has no business being on the field in running situations. But out of necessity, he's going to be. So that's the hot and cold that is this front four. That is going to be this defensive line, this front four defensive line. Is you're going to have an interior that, in these running situations, Ibiagbe is going to be very, very good in there. But all this stuff that's going to be happening up the middle, teams are going to be able to scheme up the middle on you, and it's going to be very difficult to stop them. Which is another reason why you want an offense that can sustain drives a lot longer. So I understand the strategy in the offensive building there. And you're just hoping that you can get high effort play from the interior during passing situations because you have such quality on the edge there with Mack and Joey Bosa. But it really is a hot and cold group. The interior doesn't have the depth. There's a lot of faith leaning on Michael Mason's ranking there as the number 3 edge guy. If he doesn't play that way, then they got no depth. And same thing with Justin Ibiagbe here. If he's just a meh rookie, then they probably have the worst interior run stuffers in the league. So this is something to watch out for throughout the year. Now going to the linebackers, this is Navarro Bowman's group, tied for 11th here in linebacker coverage. Nick Neiman is going to be out there, and then Junior Colson is like your new number 1 3-down linebacker, the rookie from Michigan, staying with his defensive coordinator from Michigan, so there's going to be some continuity there. I think it'll make for a much smoother transition for Colson in particular as a player. And Colson's just a well-rounded player, a well-rounded linebacker, and you hope that can translate to the NFL. Deion Henley, who was picked up last year, I look for him to be an option as well. Not a whole lot else for linebacker coverage. See Denzel Perriman there. He's definitely more of an early down linebacker when he's even healthy, which we'll see him get on the field here, but they are tied for 26th. And that's the cause for concern with this team. That's been the concern for the last couple of years that they're still in the process of trying to get this team out of, which is up the middle defensively. They have been very, very weak, and it's been something that's cost them games weekly for the last couple of seasons. So they're going to really have to step up. You hope that Junior Colson can be coached up in a great way, great continuity from his college influence as college defensive coordinator, mixing that in with Navarro Bowman. You mix that in with the veteran presence of Denzel Perryman, and that's really the key here. But linebacker coverage, great. Their pass defense is going to be very, very good, even at its lowest. It's when you get into these games where teams are going to be able to run the ball on you, it's going to hurt your ability to win games, because your offense in particular is not an offense currently built to be able to come from behind. This is an offense that you've built to be able to play with a lead. Play with a lead early, and then you play great pass defense. This is not a team that's built to be able to sustain a season if the opposite is true all that often. So that's really what's going to hurt them. So you're hoping that Colson and Perriman and Deion Henley and Nick Neiman as a group here can make up for the deficiencies you have on the interior, but they're really on the same level in terms of their ability against the run. So it might be a long season for them in that sense. Now going to the cornerbacks, and they are 25th in the league. Asante Samuel stepping into his number one corner role. You're hoping he can continue to develop and come into his own further. They drafted Cam Hart from Notre Dame. To me, he's already coming in as their number 2 corner. And then not a whole lot after that. Looks like Christian Fulton's going to get a lot of snaps coming over from Tennessee. He had like one good year with the Titans where it looked like he was going to be something, and sort of surrounding that hasn't been much of anything. So maybe a new environment can get him back to that level. You're hoping some of their depth pieces, Jasir Taylor is going to be somebody who's going to be working to get a lot of those nickelback snaps. Zamari Walton, a rookie, Deion Leonard coming in or being on the team. That's really probably where this starts and stops for their cornerback room, is those 6 guys. Asante Samuel's size has always sort of worked against him. That sort of is what is working against him, because as these receivers are getting bigger and more athletic, he's sort of losing the advantage here. So it's going to be interesting to see how he gets used throughout the year, and if his size continues to be something that holds him back in particular from really breaking out. And throwing, Cam Hart eventually out there on the field, you're hoping that he can truly step into the role early in his career, sort of like what you saw with Tariq Woolen, or what you saw with any number of different cornerbacks who have had to take on high responsibilities in weaker cornerback rooms as rookies. I think he's going to have all the opportunities in the world to do that. And then they're going to have a lot of help on the back end, though, with this safety group. Safety coverage, they're 5th in the league. Alohi Gilman was one of the best safeties in the league last year, in coverage in particular. And him being able to play that deep third safety role allows Derwin James, who gets a 76th grade as a safety in coverage, to step up, play closer to the line. I think it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for him to really step into his own and play the game that he wants to play, which is like a big physical safety who actually has a lot of athleticism and can match up well against a bunch of different guys out there on the field. But a lot of the responsibility that he sort of was having to make up for on the back end, Gilman was able to take up that mantle. The depth there is not all that great. So it's really a 2-man show here, but they really do elevate this game, and they're going to really help in keeping the game in front of them, the game in front of the defense, giving more opportunities to lesser talented players, is I guess a way to put it, to step up and make plays, because they're not going to want to go deep against Gilman. They're always going to have to identify where Derwin James is, and that maybe takes away that certain aspect of the field, between the numbers, between the hash and the numbers, where Derwin James is going to be living. And then on early downs, they're 4th in DB run support. Gilman is actually quite good at that role. He was quite good at it last year. Derwin James, probably the best, if not, top 2 or 3 in the league. in terms of his ability in the run game. So there's a lot that's going to be made up for here. The fear is, of course, that they're going to get chipped away at throughout games, nickel and dimed down the field a lot. But I think a lot of the big playability is going to be quelled by this safety group and their ability to play deep and to play up to the line, and mixing and matching the two of them. And I think because their abilities, they're both very good at both aspects of the game. They might be more inclined to sort of mix and match and disguise a bit. Maybe sometimes Derwin James does retreat downfield and Gilman comes up to maybe be closer to the line of scrimmage. I think they'll be able to work that in throughout the year. And I think there'll be a lot less fear of it because of the talent abilities here. Now, again, the ideal situation is the opposite, but I think their skill sets are perfect for a defensive coordinator who wants to mix and match things, play both guys close to the line of scrimmage in more traditional running situations to help out with the deficiencies they're going to have on the interior defensive line and linebacker in particular for the run game. So it really is an interesting defense that the edges and the back end are going to be having to carry this defense for the most part. So again, just running through the positional summary, and you can see it's the safety group and the edge group is what really stands out here. Even some of the depth of the edge room is really good. So, cornerbacks get a C run grade, middle of the pack, average. Nothing spectacular, nothing to worry about either. And overall, it's the 10th defense in the league, tied for 13th in the past. They're actually 9th in run defense because they are actually brought up by how well we're going to see that edge room really help set the edges, and it's going to allow them to funnel things into the interior where now they can actually have a focus on the linebackers and the interior guys playing those A gaps and B gaps with a lot more discipline and free-for-all. So I do think that despite the talent level, we're going to see a very solid run and pass defense from this team all around. The overall rank here is 16th, tied for 13th in coaching, 25th offense, 10th ranked defense. It's a team that is designed to play a certain way, a certain style of football, and they can see a lot of success if this all works out. But the floor for this team, if this style doesn't work out, could be tragic. And there you have it, my number 16 team in my 2024 NFL Deep Dive Series, the Los Angeles Chargers. Thank you for watching. Please hit the thumbs up on this video. It helps out with the algorithms, as does leaving a comment in the comment section below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and so you don't miss any of the other future videos. The ones that are on either side of my head, the playlist, and then the other video, which is either a best for you, or if number 15's been revealed, it's, hey, go check out number 15, and I will see you guys with the next video next time.